right, lovers, so what we're gonna do today is I have my Poseidon X. I'm gonna redo the tubeless setup on the rear tire. The internal width of your rims is a big deal. And so you see that's 28 millimeters. So I got the rim internal width is 24 millimeters. So they say 3 to 4 millimeters greater than. So this should be fine. This should work. So I need that. Bike is through axle, so I'm gonna need this 6 millimeter Allen wrench to get it off. I'm gonna need some tire levers to get the tire off. I'm gonna need obviously some sealant, so that's my stand sealant. I'm gonna need an air pump to get this tire pumped up, but I'm also gonna need this for the airsoft. Now this will set the tire on. It'll give it just a quick shot of 140 PSI. That's what you need, just a quick stream of that to set the tire bead onto the rim. So this is something that you can get online. I believe I got this on Amazon. It can be tricky taking this rear wheel on and off, but the one thing that'll make it easier, which will save your life so much hassle, is putting it in the smallest cog. That'll save you so much time on putting it in and out. Pull this down and out. So we've got this off. You're gonna go into the valve. When I first started working with tires, putting on tubes was really challenging. And there are some combinations of tube and rims, tires and rims that are easier or more difficult than others. This G540 DT Swiss hub, I haven't really had any problems putting on any tires. So that's been good. So I feel like all the air has been let out. And now I'm gonna get my tire levers and I'm gonna take the tube out. We got a hold of it and boom, taking it out. Now my personal opinion is there are some things about tubeless setup that is a pain in the ass. But the one thing I personally think is easier is putting the tire on without a tube. You can see there's a tear there, there's a tear there. So you can see a little tear there. So this was not gonna work. I wanna find where the valve hole is. So it's right there, you can see my blue shirt through it. Cut the tape at a little bit of an angle, and we're just gonna lay that in there. So when I first started doing tubeless, I would tape it twice. If you get a good tape on it, you don't need to do it twice. But I definitely recommend you take your time with this. I'm taking my time. Making sure there's no air bubbles. This is clear tape, so this is new for me. I've never done it with clear tape before. So far I'd say this is going in pretty nicely. You want to pull this really as tight as you can, as taut as you can, and just do little pieces at a time. Made it just past the valve again. Gonna get my tape, cut it at an angle, makes it easy to take off, and just make sure it's gone all the way around. So I'd say that looks pretty good. I've got my valve core. And you're just gonna go ahead and poke into there. Like that. Okay. The fun part happens if you can get the tire set onto the tubeless. So we've got it all taped up. we got our tubeless tire. And so like I said, for me personally, I feel like this is the part of tubeless that is easier than tubed, is getting the tire back on. You know, get in the comment section of your experience with this if you've done this on your own. But to me, this is the part that's like not as challenging personally. Watch me struggle as I do it. But nah, it's pretty mellow. Okay, so we got one side on, and then we're gonna get the other side on. And I feel like you might need that lever for the last little bit at the end, but I don't know. I don't know that I've really ever used a lever in a serious way. But here it is. Yeah, this last little piece, you might want to use the lever to get everything back on. And that's totally fine if you need to do that. Now the valve core, you want to leave it off because you're going to need to put that air shot in there. Boom. So that is on. So now that it's on, the valve core is not in, but the tire is not set to the beads. So you're going to need to give it that air shot. You're pumping it up. So I think 120 is actually fine. Take my open valve core here, and then screw this on. When I flick this should set the tire. I don't feel like I felt that pop, pop, pop. I don't feel like I felt the pop, pop, pop. So I'm gonna try this again. One of the indicators I really get is if the tire should not deflate. If the tire deflates, then you've run into issues. So we're gonna try this again. This time it's set. So now you can see, because it has not deflated, it stayed inflated, it has worked. Now it's gonna deflate when I take this off. That's okay. So now to test it, we're going to pump it up like a regular tire and see if it stays pumped up. It should be able to pump up to 40 PSI and stay that way. So I'm gonna pump it up. And I'm having trouble keeping it pumped up. Some of this sealant that's like caked onto it on the outside is preventing it from creating a good seal. So I think what I could do is scrub the tire, is try to scrub that sealant off the tire. The good news is, so back now, the good news is I have been able to get this tire set. It has the valve and the valve core in. I've taken the valve out a few times and it has been able to hold air. Now, one of my theories is there was a lot of dried up sealant around the walls of the tire, and the part where the bead sets into the tire was kind of all gunked up with sealant, and my theory is scraping that off allowed it to create a greater seal. If you know that with the air shot it can hold air in it, the tape is tight, but the beads probably weren't super well set. Because they weren't well set, as soon as I took the air, I kind of lost its beading in there. So I think just when you're setting these, like, you really have to clean the tires out if you want them to reset. Now, what I'm going to do is the next phase of it is I'm going to try to get some sealant in there. So my preferred method is to take the valve core out and inject some sealant in it. Okay, and so here we go. So right there, got up to that 60 mil mark. Stick this in here. And slowly let gravity do its thing. And that's all the sealant in there. And then we'll get that valve core back in. Repumping it will keep its pressure. Seems to be keeping its pressure. I'm gonna get it all up in there. So that looks good. It looks like it's all sealed up. Grease on that axle. If you keep that wheel, it makes such a big difference to keep it at the right gear. And then we're just gonna push that thing back. Boom. Put that axle right through. And it should be in there. Now I just gotta screw it to make sure. Gonna go ahead and put the chain back on. Here. Make sure. Lined up with the derailleur. And it should be simple as that.